So the Milwaukee Bucks have themselves a new head coach, Mike Budenholzer. And this could be really good for the Bucks because they're a team that has been pretty talented but has never had the coach to really give them a sense of direction. Jason Kidd's defensive style was just try to do everything. So defend the middle, defend the corners, and swarm every ball handler. Like, you can't do that, you know? You need to be able to favor certain things and let some other things go if you want to be a really good defense. And then also their offense was never that intricate. A lot of basic plays for Milwaukee, I would say. But now with Coach Bud, I think some interesting things open up here, where we could see more ball movement from Milwaukee, also just more of an actual defensive system, which is huge because if you can figure out how to use Giannis effectively on defense, then that could make you one of the best defensive teams in the league, just because he's already really good, and I feel like he doesn't totally have defense down yet. Like, a lot of it is just him being so physically imposing and being like 7 feet tall with supreme athleticism that it allows him to just still be really effective from there. But then if you have specific sets and everything, you can be better. And I do think that that's going to be where we see the immediate difference with Budenholzer on the Bucks, because the Hawks under him, when they had like actual players, were always a good defensive team. Even the last season when they went from Horford to Dwight Howard and their perimeter defense got worse, they were still one of the better teams in the NBA in that department. And then when they had Horford and Millsap, they were like number 1 or at least like top 5 every season defensively. And the interesting thing was he didn't switch too often. Maybe you'd want to update that for today's NBA just because there's more shooting now, but they still made it work. And an interesting thing that happened this season for Coach Bud, and this was something that I didn't really know because I didn't watch the Hawks this season, okay? But Zach Lowe pointed this out, that Budenholzer updated his defense this year to where it wasn't as aggressive towards like ball handlers, which is the problem for the Bucks the past couple of seasons. So that's good. The one criticism you could throw at Coach Bud's defense is that they gave up too many threes, right? And we saw that against LeBron James-led teams in the postseason. So it seems he's dialed that back a bit. So that's good. I think his defensive chops should be good with this Bucks team. It'll be interesting to see what he does with Thon Maker, because we saw in the Celtics series and through a bit of his rookie season that Thon can be a pretty good defender, you know? He can step out and switch on to ball handlers and all that, and I think he just needs some help in terms of just knowing what to do all the time, but the potential is definitely there with him. And then hopefully Coach Bud recognizes that Thon should not be shooting mid-range jumpers, which is what Jason Kidd thought he should have been doing. Get him out to the three-point line, give yourself as much spacing as possible. Now, Thon does still have some problems in terms of grabbing rebounds and all that, so I don't know if you can rely on him to start day 1 next season, but I would like to think that he can get better. And then between Giannis and Middleton and Brogdon and I guess Bledsoe, if he wants to actually care, these guys could end up being a quality defensive team. Maybe immediately under Coach Bud. I don't want to go too crazy. I think we all expected the T-Wolves to have a defensive revelation the moment Thibodeau showed up, and then we realized, oh yeah, Towns and Wiggins are really young, and it's tough to play defense in the NBA when you're that age. So we won't go crazy just yet, but I do think we can expect these guys to be better than 19th on defense. Now if we can get to the offense, the one thing I notice is that Atlanta passes the ball way more than the Bucks do. If you look at this season, Atlanta led the league in passing at like 330 passes a game, and then the Bucks were towards the bottom of the league at around 280 passes a game or whatever. You go back to 2017, 2016, the Hawks have always been one of the better passing teams, and if we can just remember those good Hawks teams and just the constant ball movement that they had, side-to-side action, handoff plays, and off-ball cuts, and getting Korver open off the ball, all that beautiful basketball stuff, that you kind of see from like the Warriors and the Celtics and the Heat. A similar thing to be expected from Coach Bud. Now, the interesting thing is, this season, Coach Bud and the Hawks were by far and away the most frequent pick-and-roll team in the NBA. Well, I guess not by far, but they were still number one in the league, whereas the Bucks ran like 600 less pick-and-rolls than the Hawks this season. That could just be because Dennis Schroeder's the guy there now, and I mean, Coach Bud didn't have too many other things to go with, but it'll be interesting to see, because I mean, he's never had a guy like Giannis. I mean, he had Jeff Teague, and you know, Teague's he's an okay point guard, but doesn't have Giannis's ability to just barrel his way into the basket. So, are we going to see a whole bunch of screens for Giannis? Are we going to see him moving off the ball? Are we going to see him put into certain isolation situations? I think some more post-up opportunities for Giannis where he could get like designed switches would be good as well. It'll probably be a combination of all these things. I don't think Coach Bud is like too singular with his offense, I guess. Another thing with his offense is we should expect Milwaukee to shoot more threes now. If you look at the Bucks' three-point attempts compared to the rest of the NBA, this season they were in the 20s. Last year they were actually like around number 10, and then the years before that they were also in the 20s, whereas the Hawks, for most of Coach Bud's run, were about in the top 10 in threes attempted. They weren't like number 1 or 2, but they were towards the top of the league nonetheless. That should be good, I think, between Brogdon and Middleton and Jabari and I guess Thon as well. The floor should just be generally more spaced. The spacing was always good with the Hawks, of course. And then in terms of just how they're going to get the open looks, I'm sure you'll see moments of like Middleton and Jabari running off the ball, whether it's simple floppy sets or like flare screens, or just like spread pick and rolls with Giannis up top, or spread isolations, because I think Giannis can beat a lot of NBA players off the dribble. We should definitely expect the Bucks to be hoisting up some more shots this year. And the interesting thing is, even with not taking too many threes, the Bucks still managed to be 9th in offense this season. There's definitely talent on the team, so if they can just be utilized a bit better, then we could see these guys take a bit of a jump. I also forgot about Tony Snell when I'm thinking about this as well. So, I mean, you could have a pretty spread floor between Giannis, Snell, Middleton, Jabari, Brogdon. It'll just be a matter for Coach Bud to figure it all out. Now, I guess, is there any potential ways that this could go maybe not as well as we predict? Well, I mean, we haven't really seen Coach Bud with a team that wasn't run by big guys, as in Horford and Millsap, because those two made up for, you know, a lot of what the Hawks did in terms of screening and handoff plays and that sort of thing. And Giannis can do some of those things, sure, but you're more going to want to give Giannis the ball at the top of the key, and you're going to want him to go to work, right? And besides that, I mean, a lot of this team's offense is run through just starting from the perimeter and going in. Between, like, Middleton, who likes to ISO, and Bledsoe, who's got to be in screens, and Brogdon, who's got to be in pick and rolls, and of course there's Giannis as well. So it'll be a little different, and I guess there's a chance that Bud maybe doesn't adjust to it, but I don't think that'll be the case. I think he's one of those coaches where he should be able to adjust. I know that against the Cavs, his reliance on attacking the ball handler and not going away from it quickly enough resulted in some losses. I mean, his teams probably would have lost anyway because, you know, the talent disparity, but a couple little fears here and there, but I think the good stuff should outweigh any potential negatives for Coach Bud in Milwaukee. And then besides all that, there were certain mistakes made in the conference finals against the Celtics, or not the finals, the round one, that probably just don't happen anymore. in terms of like Prunty leaving Jason Terry in for too long, or not taking Bledsoe out even though he was like awful on defense. I think Coach Bud would not be afraid to just get Bledsoe on the bench if he's not playing well. I remember Prunty also playing Tyler Zeller in Game 7, or maybe it wasn't even Game 7, but it was just in the series. Whenever Zeller would come in, he would just get destroyed. I'm sure Coach Bud would recognize that Zeller would be unplayable against a team with as much ball movement as the Celtics. Another interesting thing is that Coach Bud's Hawks teams, they did not foul that much. They were always towards the top of the league in least amount of personal fouls, but they still were able to be very good on defense. Whereas the Bucks were like 26th in fouls this season, and before this year they were still like mid-tier or maybe even a little under average in the NBA. So like all that stuff, that's all going to be cleaned up pretty quickly with Coach Bud, I have to imagine. So some good things, I think, in store for Milwaukee. It'll be good to see Giannis with more direction rather than just a whole bunch of improvisational stuff. Should be good things, man. Just have to see how it goes.